an empty agenda for the start of our TOC meeting today. Rama, it's awesome to have you with us.
Thank you, Mitch. I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. Let's see. Ian, Daniel, do you know if any of the other solo crew are going to make it this week?
I know Lynn's traveling, so probably not. Louis, I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
I think John's traveling too. I could be wrong with that one.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, we've got the three of us, and there's not actually anything on the agenda. But was there anything someone was hoping to bring up ad hoc this week? Did we get any good KubeCon talk acceptances? I struck out.
We got the Contrib Fest. Probably sync up with you in a little bit since you've run some in the past.
Nice.
Probably good advice.
Yeah, those are always fun. I've always been amazed at how many people actually show up ready to get some work done. Actually, I'll go ahead and share here just for breadth. We've already kind of addressed it a little bit in last week's community meeting. Give me just a second to pull up a document covering our essentially beta tech list checklist. Copy this. Share this tab out here. It'll be good to have this. So I think probably most of us are aware that in 127 we shipped multi-cluster for ambient, particularly multi-network multi-cluster as an alpha. And so now we're looking at the sort of burn down list for what we need to do to get to beta quality, hopefully within the next release is sort of our objective. We've got our feature lifecycle checklist is linked here, and I've more or less copied it and pasted it with my sort of opinion on where we're at. So we have approved design docs, so I think we're good there. As far as beta features can be enabled by default. Obviously, it's not beta yet, so it's not enabled by default, but we can add that in the beta. And the nice thing is, if you're not using multi-cluster, as in you've not explicitly added another cluster's remote secret to the cluster, enabling by default should have no effect. There's no change that's going to occur as a result of having it enabled by default. It just means that rather than having to have install flags and also remote secrets, just remote secrets is enough to effectively use multi-cluster. So it's nice to have a single flag for enablement there. Yeah, Ian.
Keith, is there no overhead to do the joins? I think if you enable it, then a bunch of our collections, which create WDS, effectively get replaced with a join collection that only has one thing in it. Is that correct, Keith?
That is correct. So in the multi-cluster enabled by default, we will end up doing I think one extra copy of the data in the local cluster.
Okay. So we should probably like benchmark it. It should be like low CPU, I would imagine, because there's no work to be done. But
right.
Yeah, one copy. Okay, cool. Thanks, just for my understanding, really.
Rama?
So if current existing setup already has remote secrets with sidecars multi-cluster enabled, with Does that mean when we move to this beta, without enabling flag, ambient gets multi-cluster free?
So if you're using sidecar multi-cluster, then ambient is not enabled at all. And so ambient multi-cluster would also not be enabled. This would be along with other ambient features behind the ambient enablement flag.
So to make clarification on that, so the ambient flag is on by default already. So when you get, ambient's been on by default. No, wait, I take that back. Sorry, in the ambient profile only.
Right.
I've been installing the ambient profile so much, I thought it was on by default. Okay, yes. So that does bring into question about the eventual ambient on by default play, but we're not there yet. The thing I will bring up to that question, Rama, is the ambient multi-cluster data structures and the sidecar multi-cluster data structures are actually completely separate sections of the code, the way that it's implemented. So today, there is actually some overhead with the multi-cluster ambient index because we have two different remote secret flows, one for sidecar, one for ambient, and two different storages. We're storing it in two different places. So one potential area for optimization in the future is to unify those. The main reason being that the ambient multi-cluster service information is stored inside of KRT collections, and the sidecar multi-cluster storage is not stored in KRT. In fact, they're two completely different data structures. In ambient, we use service info for translating to WDS, and in sidecar mode, we use model.service, and model.service is just sort of multi-cluster aware by default. So there is some overhead to that, but the sort of benefit to that is if you're not using, the benefit to that is that the ambient experience is not going to touch the sidecar experience at all, to Mitch's point.
Well, and likewise,
Okay.
if by some accident you did have both enabled in the cluster at the same time, ambient multi-cluster only exposes services as global when they are explicitly labeled as such using our service selector. For service scope config. I think I got the name right. So there shouldn't be any crosstalk essentially between the two systems yet. We eventually may want to support crosstalk in sort of a migration, but that's not really the purpose of this document.
Okay, thank you.
So under docs, the heading of docs, we're required to document performance expectations. I'm done with performance testing, and Stephen, I think, has done performance testing now. I took the control plane side, he took the data plane side. I've not seen a great example on our docs of how we document this for other features. I'm wondering if this is a requirement that we've not really used much in the past. I'm not sure. So we have the data. Now we just have to decide how to provide that to the users. How do we package it up in a consumable way, help them get their expectations? Our documentation already includes samples and tutorials, and I've got a link to those there. And there are no really new glossary entries required for ambient multi-cluster. We are similar enough that all of the glossary entries are consistent between the two. Any questions on docs for multi-cluster?
Yeah, I do have a question on that. Are tests already enabled on those docs pages? Because I think that's a
believe
requirement
so.
for beta.
Yes.
Yes, they are. We wrote all new tests for the ambient docs walkthroughs, and those are running on NCI.
Including the multi-cluster ambient pages? Because I know the
Including
ambient
the-
one was.
Yes, including the multi-cluster ambient pages, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
it's
no
good
problem.
It's good to be sure about those things.
Absolutely.
And that actually segues really nicely to our next section about tests. As far as I am aware, there is no testing gap as of 127 for multi-cluster ambient. Does anyone know otherwise?
We don't have any. Sorry, take that back. We've got one multi-clustered test for ambient integration test for ambient multi-cluster, we likely need more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say needs expansion.
Yes, the one that we do have, I think Jackie added, which is like testing direct HBone access through an east-west gateway. But we need to set it up and like replicate a lot of the traffic tests, replicate a lot of the sidecar multi-cluster testing. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought there were some more tests in flight currently, right? Or maybe they got merged. Stephen, I know you were working with someone to get those tests in.
Yeah, he's been progressing
Okay.
pretty steadily. But yeah, right now we're just trying to get the first test of like, can we even do multi-cluster connectivity? And then I'm going to ask him to start thinking about some more complex stuff.
Got cool. Okay.
All right. On the performance line, we need to have baseline performance tests. Between Stephen and I, we've executed baseline performance tests. As I mentioned before, we're working on packaging that up into a user-friendly documentation. We should probably talk about where those tests live and how often they get run. I did notice that our core Istio performance and scale tests have not been updated or not been run since 124. They're a manual process that we've, as far as I can tell, not been doing. So it's possible that we just package it up with those, and whenever we run our suite, they're part of the suite. If you have other opinions on where and how to run those, that would be interesting.
One thing to note on those is that I think historically, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, we've run those on the CNCF provided infra, which has been Equinix until recently, and those are going away soon. So we're going to need to figure out what the new CNCF infra location is and update, maybe run a couple of versions of tests just so we have a common baseline with common hardware.
Yeah, I will add that a lot of the testing seems somewhat ad hoc, and I'm partly to blame for that. I think the 1.22 tests, I think, were run by an LFX intern, and it was just kind of a script that's sitting in the Equinix VM. Oh, actually, it's not a VM machine. And I kind of did the same thing, and it doesn't seem like there's I guess the current test infra, I don't know what the status of that is. Like, is stuff being run? Does it even work? What does it handle? And ultimately, I feel like, at least for me personally, it was a lot easier to just like whip up a quick test script than to like try to figure out how the test infra works. So yeah, I'd be curious on people's thoughts on, once we run the tests, how we should write the code and how we should publish the code.
Okay, I'm not hearing a lot of opinions on that. We do have the Istio tools repos perf folder, which has a number of tools for running performance tests. And that's great for ad hoc scenarios. If you want to spin up a new scenario that you've not done before, I used it a year ago to run scalability tests up to, I don't remember, did we go up to 100,000 pods or something along those lines? But what it's not so great for is reproducible identical tests, which is really what we want in terms of documentation, be able to say we're continuing to meet the same performance objectives, or we've gotten better, or we've maybe gotten a little bit worse on some dimensions. For that, we really need to draw a line in the sand and say, like, here's how you use the perf tools to produce our official performance number for a release. I'm hopeful that we don't need to pull on that thread too much just to get multi-cluster to beta. That sounds like kind of some work that needs to be done across the whole project, not specific to any one feature. But at the very least, we will bring the multi-cluster beta performance testing up to parity with the remainder of the Istio ecosystem tests. There's really nothing to talk about on the API front because we didn't change any APIs. I don't think we added any new CLI commands. Did I get that right, Keith?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. I have a query here for how we're going to track bugs. Last time I looked at the query, there were 1 or 2 that looked like they probably should be closed as stale. It looks like Mike has gotten around to creating a few more for us. So we're going to be tracking things that either features, bugs, things that are misbehaving. Those will all get tracked at that link. And then I'm also tracking a number of things that we're also trying to resolve in the before we go to beta that we don't really think are beta blockers. They're not showing up on the checklist. They're not API changes. But for instance, a lot of folks have asked about running multiple clusters in a single network using this model. On paper, that should work just fine. Multi-network is more complicated than single network. And so we've got a superset of the required features, but we don't have any tests for it. And we have a habit as a project of not offering as a feature things that we don't have tests to demonstrate that work. So there'd be some testing work there, some work around how to do outlier detection, multi-cluster routing priorities and control. But again, none of these, as far as I can tell, none of these are going to change the fundamental behavior of multi-cluster or the enablement API. And so these are things that could theoretically land after the beta if need be, but they are important to my team and we're working on them. Rama, did you have something to add there?
No, I think that makes sense. Outlier detection, is it specific to multi-cluster or in general outlier detection?
It is far more useful in multi-cluster than it is anywhere else. Within a single cluster, outlier detection tends to be less valuable because the network is more reliable. Particularly in a multi-cluster network, we expect that some cluster-to-cluster links will, for instance, be very high latency, while others will not be. And so outlier detection, rather than having a prescriptive fallover within zone, then within region, then to other regions, we can simply say fall over to the least latency other cluster, whatever that happens to be.
Okay.
It's not useless within a single cluster. Like I've seen uses for it. It just becomes more useful as we start talking about multi-cluster. There's some complexity that we've described here that I'm working through. Obviously, the way that we did outlier detection for sidecar mode is HTTP based. And because we don't have an HTTP proxy on the client side in ambient, that's really not possible. So we're looking at other ways to perhaps approximate HTTP outlier detection, perhaps leverage HTTP ping latencies. If you have strong opinions there, it's early days for figuring out how we want to do that, and your input would be welcome.
Sure. Yeah.
So I won't go over these in detail, but at a high level, these are some, I'd call them alsos that we hope to be working on sometime in the next release or two that we don't believe block the beta. Any questions on taking ambient multi-cluster to beta overall? All right. So we will, oops, I needed to add Mike here. I'm only one of the authors of this doc. I'm going to go ahead and move this from work in progress to in review. We will be looking for a TOC sign off on the plan sometime in the next 2 weeks. There's no reason that needs to happen today. But take a look and make sure you're comfortable with the list. Add any questions or comments, and we'll try to address those ad hoc. Any other topics of conversation for this week? I think our next meeting is in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What is today? The 25th. So yeah, 2 weeks. Keith.
I've got something, if nobody else has a topic. Any last call for topics before I bring up revisions and tags?
I'll just mention that I think at the next TOC call, pretty much everyone from Solo will be traveling. We have an all hands that week, I think. So.
Okay. Good to know. I will take an action item to work in the TOC channel to see if that needs to be rescheduled.
Yeah, it might be a good shout.
All right. Keith, you're going to talk about tags and revisions. So you hate getting time back at the end of meetings? Is that what I'm hearing?
Whoops, I was muted. Potentially, we'll see how this goes. So there was this issue opened a couple of months ago that was just brought back up to me. I put it here in the chat, and I can put it in the the TOC. Okay, great, thanks. Basically, and last I checked back in June, I was able to reproduce this, but it seems to be the case that if you create a revisioned Istio D install and sets the default revision in Helm, and then you create a Kubernetes gateway API gateway, that gateway does not get programmed. However, if you create a default tag with that same Istio gateway, then it gets programmed and injected like normal. I added a comment here at the bottom of my understanding, especially at the time, of what the root cause is that we've got two different definitions of what the default revision is. According to our docs, the tag named default is supposed to be considered the default revision, and it's supposed to inject proxies that don't have an explicit revision. But if you set just default revision, which is all the default tag is supposed to be according, as I understand the documentation to say, then those proxies don't get injected. So I guess my question is, what is the are we wanting those to be harmonious? Like, what is the goal definition of default tag and default revision? Should those be the same? And based on that, what is the expected user experience for creating a gateway with no explicit revision? Do you have to have a tag for it to get auto-injected? I don't think that's what we want, but that seems to be the case, at least as of June 24th.
You should not have to have a tag. The default revision is something that existed before tags existed. And so we've kept it around for backwards compatibility. It's not something that I think we probably want to recommend that users leverage, as it has some problems. Particularly, how do you upgrade the default revision? There's no real well-supported way to do that.
Yeah, you have to change the base chart on when you reinstall the base chart.
So it's more than just the base chart, right? It's actually the control plane chart as well. Because the default revision's revision name is default. And revision names are not mutable.
Revisions don't have names. The default revision is the default revision is just like whatever you say it is. So if you look at the Helm install at the top of that issue, it's Helm install -- default revision. In this case, it's 1-26. It's the name of a revision. It doesn't have a name or an alias like a tag does.
Oh, so we have 3 definitions then, I think, of default revision.
Potentially.
Because you can set your revision name to default, and I'm pretty sure it respects that as well.
Oh, okay. I did not realize that. Interesting. So yeah,
That needs some cleanup.
It definitely needs some cleanup from docs as well as implementation. if we can get agreement, we probably want to start a thread. But if we can get some agreement around what we want the UX to be, then we can sort of make the changes. I think from what we probably want to start a thread about this in Slack just to make sure other TOC members and other folks in the community are on the same page. But I think what I'm hearing is we want default revision to have the sort of same semantics as default tag and inject proxies, inject proxies for gateway API gateways without having the labels. We also want the revision name default to equal the default revision, and we want the default tag to have the exact same semantics of the default revision.
Yeah,
Is that about right?
Everything we call default should have the same effect.
Yes, we should have consistency. That's a much faster way of saying it.
And maybe if there's an API-friendly way of eliminating some of those ways to set defaults, that might be in our best interest as well.
Yes, I would think so. Yes. Okay, thanks. That gives me, I think, what I need. I'll put some PRs out for code and doc changes, and we'll see where that lands.
Anyone else have strong opinions on default tags and revisions? All right. Other topics for us today? This is the shortest conversation we have ever had about tags and revisions. It usually turns into a rather deep hole, so I'm impressed. Well, if there's nothing else for us to talk about, look forward to seeing you all next time. Keep an eye out for a change on the TOC calendar. If we reschedule, I'll work with TOC members to make sure we're moving it to a time that's convenient for everyone. And we'll see you in about 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Deal. Cheers.